Welcome to Revolutionary Gazette. I'm Will. Well, thanks to our strategic partnership with our friends at Alfam, we've been able to meet Eva Mergen and her team here at Colonial Plantation in Philadelphia. And we're back, and this evening, let's talk about linen.
Linen, yes. So linen was a very important fiber in the 18th century, and it comes from the flax plant. So this is flax that we grow here right on site, and we'll talk about how we use it.
Great. Well, I'm wearing linen, find it very common. The shirt's linen. Talk to me about where we would employ linen in the 18th century.
Yeah, so linen is very absorbent. It's very easy to wash and it's very durable. So you're going to use it for clothing you wear next to your skin because you can scrub it, boil it, get it really nice and clean. Whereas wool, if you tried to do that, it would felt and shrink. It's also really absorbent. It absorbs moisture very easily, which is why we use it for things like aprons, towels, and things like that. It also helps keep us cool in the summertime because the absorbentness, it will absorb sweat. And when that sweat evaporates, it's actually going to help cool us down.
And in the economy of the Revolutionary War era, a family can grow flax and make their own linen on their own farm.
Yes, in fact, we probably would have been growing flax here in the 18th century because we've got a really ideal location. We've got those low lands right next to the stream, so it's going to be nice and wet. Flax likes wet ground, cool springs, all of which makes this a really ideal location.
Well, if you go down to your grain lot now, you can actually see flax growing.
Yes, yep. We planted our flax back in April, and it will be harvested late June or early July.
Talk to me about harvesting flax.
Okay, so when you harvest flax, it's not like other crops. You're going to want to actually pull it out of the ground, and that might sound hard, but it's actually quite easy. The roots let go easily, but the reason for that is where the fibers are in this plant. So this plant has a woody stem with fibers running up and down the outside, and those fibers go all the way from the tip all the way to the end of the root. So by pulling it, you get the longest fibers possible.
Great. Now, how do we get the fiber out of that and turn it into a shirt or an apron?
Okay, so there are a bunch of steps you need to go through. Once it's harvested, you're going to set it in the field to dry. Once it's dry, you're going to do something called retting, which is basically a controlled rotting process.
So how do we ret flax?
So there's two different ways of retting. You can do ret it, which is basically laying it out on the field after you pull it, and it's got a do ret for a couple of weeks. It's a really easy process. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need to have a pond, but a faster way to ret is tank retting or pond retting. And in that, you will actually soak these stalks in water for a few days. And they would have done it in a pond or a stream in the 18th century. We do it here in a tank because we're in a state park and we've got to be careful about what we put into the water here. But they would have used the pond or a creek in the 18th century.
Fantastic. So when it's done retting, you're holding something. I assume you let it dry?
Yep, after it rets, you're gonna let it dry really, really bone dry, because if you don't let it dry well and you store it, it's going to get moldy and it's going to damage the fiber. The nice thing is once it's retted, it can be stored for a long time. So again, you're going to ret it and then store it for a time of year when you don't have as much going on. So you'll be harvesting in the summer, but probably processing over the winter.
Okay, and in front of us, these are processing tools?
Yep, these are all of our processing tools. They're very different than the tools that you would use for wool, and I'll show you how the different tools work. So this one in front of me is called a flax brake, and it's basically like a giant wooden pair of scissors.
Wow.
The flax goes in here, and what this does is this starts to break up that woody stem into smaller pieces.
Rather violent.
Yes, this is not for the faint of heart. So now we've gotten one end nicely done, and we want to go through and do the other end because, like I said, those fibers go from end to end. So you can see we've already changed this pretty significantly, but you can see we've got a lot of pieces of woody stem stuck in there that we don't want in the finished product.
All right, so talk to me about this next step.
Okay, so the next step is called scutching, and I have a scutching knife, which is basically a wooden knife, and a scutching board. So your scutching knife is basically scraping out, I'm gonna get you a little bit dirty there, it's scraping out those pieces of woody stem.
This is almost a flax version of separating the wheat from the chaff.
Yes, it's very similar.
And are we going to save any of this woody stuff that comes out of here?
Not Not so much. I mean, you might collect it up and use it for fire starter, but this is not our main byproduct of flax production. That will come later in the tow. Okay, so we've gotten a lot of that woody stem out. The rest of it's going to come in the next step. This is a hetchel.
That looks dangerous.
It is. I have drawn blood more than once.
What's the goal of it? I assume drawing blood is not the goal.
That is not the goal. The goal of this is a couple of things. We want to remove whatever's left of the woody stem. We also want to remove any short fibers that might be in here. We talked about how flax is very durable, and that comes from the length of the fibers. So short fibers in there are going to mess with that. So, and then the last thing it's going to do is going to comb all those fibers out and start to soften them.
Okay.
So we're going to put this through the hetchel. And what you see collecting here, this is our flax tow. And right now,
flax tow.
Tow, T-O-W. Right now it's got a lot of woody stem in it. This is fabulous fire starter.
Okay.
You use this as tinder in your fires. As we go along and it has less woody stem in it, that tow is going to be used for rope. Flax rope is wonderful because it's durable when wet. And then it'll also be used for sacking material.
Sacking.
Yeah, so grain sacks, and storage sacks.
You can hear this. You can hear it starting to run better.
Yep, and it's getting smoother and smoother, and you can see I've got a lot less material in there.
And then would you separate that tow separately?
Yeah, I will often sort the tow as I'm going, the stuff that I'm going to use as a fire starter versus something that I'm going to use as rope.
Is there a length of staple difference between a fire starting tow and a rope tow?
Not so much. I'm mostly looking at the presence of the woody stem because that woody stem is going to make it more frustrating to spin.
Okay.
So if I've got less stem in there, it's going to spin up better for rope.
Seems like the byproduct's every bit as important, and we can get more out of this crop that we've grown on our farm.
Yep, exactly. In the 18th century, they were very good at using everything. And when you're working with flax, you have like 70% that doesn't actually end up in your clothing by weight because there is a lot of these byproducts.
So you need to do something else with it.
Right, or it's not worthwhile. And you can see it's starting to look like hair. Mm-hmm. If you've ever heard the term flaxen haired, that is where it comes from. Somebody with blonde, straight hair would be called flaxen haired. And you can see how different that is now from what we started out with. It's not totally finished. If I was really doing this to produce clothing, I would actually go through a number of successive hetchels where the iron spikes were finer and closer together, and I would be producing different grades of linen, whether I'm using coarse linen for aprons and towels or your finest linen for your gentleman's shirt.
Great.
Yeah.
So, okay, you've got beautiful flaxen, not quite hair, but flaxen flax there.
Yep.
What's next?
So the next process is to put this on a tool called a distaff, which is basically a stick that holds these fibers. So with wool fibers, when you're spinning them, you can hold them in your hands, but these fibers are really, really long. So holding them on a distaff is going to help you control them as you spin them. And then, of course, the next step is spinning these into yarns. You're going to spin with water on your hands because that's going to help create a smoother yarn in the end. The flax still has some of that pectin in it, and with the wetness on your hands, it's going to create a really beautifully smooth yarn, so not fuzzy. And then once the spinning is done, we're going to weave this into fabric on a loom.
Okay. In 18th century, do we find this work, is this split up by gender, or is the whole family work on this, or does this stay women's work or men's work in the barn?
So not every family in colonial Pennsylvania was producing clothing. During the colonial era, we were importing a lot of fabric from England, and so most families would be going to markets and buying fabric. However, if you have an ideal location like this for flax, yes, you would be producing flax. In general, the work in the crop field would have been the men's work. Once it got to this area, it would have been more women involved. Spinning in Pennsylvania was generally a woman's chore. So it was rolled in with all of their other housework, again, often done during the winter time. In Pennsylvania, once you move to weaving, you're back to a man's profession. So this would have been a profession where you apprenticed and then became a master weaver. So generally families would send their spun yarn to a weaver and he would give them back fabric. They may pay for that service by leaving some of the fabric with him to sell to other people, or they may make a cash payment for that service.
Well, Eva, thank you for sharing this piece of story with us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being with us at Revolutionary Gazette. We don't think twice about clothing. We go to the store and buy it. In the Revolutionary War era, you may be able to, you may not have that option. And here's a look at how one of the most common cloths went from the field to my shirt. We'll see you next time.